So here it is. Okay, Marcio, so this lecture is about the third noble truth, and what this begins with is letters to the young poet. Talks about how you need to be patient, how you have to live the questions. That's the theme of through everything. In this lecture is that even if I could tell you the answers, I wouldn't, because you wouldn't understand them, because you have to live them, because otherwise they're not going to make sense. So that was the first part. So then as we go on, we're talking about living the journey, embracing the journey, and enjoying the journey. And so Siddhartha leaves Buddhism because he thinks that it's not going to give him what he wants. And so he also leaves Galinda. I don't think his name is really Galinda. Okay, I think I got confused with the Wizard of Oz there. So sorry. Okay, Govinda, I think the name is. Let me look it up. Anyway, he leaves his friend because he thinks that it's not going to help, and he is going off in search of meaning. He then decides that this spiritual journey isn't going to make him happy. So then he goes and he actually finds a wife, and he pursues a successful career, and he becomes very wealthy, and he has everything that money could buy, but he's still not happy. He still has this detached spirit. So then he turns to sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but yet he still feels like he's living like this slow death, and that nothing is working for him. So what Dr. Hackett talks about is how these are snares. He talks about how drugs and money and, sex, drugs, and sex, that was the other one, are snares, and that you can get caught in them. But he says that when students tell him, like, this is what I want to do, he's like, yeah, go and do it, and then come back to me in a little bit and tell me how that worked for you. Because what people will eventually realize, and what Siddhartha had realized, was just that you have to be true to yourself, and if you're not true to yourself, you're going to realize it. But you could have had these answers the whole time. Like, someone could have told you, no, you can't do that, that's a dumb thing to do. But it's not going to mean anything until you actually do it, figure it out for yourself. It's just like, it's a different language. So once he realizes that nothing is really going to make him happy, and he begins living so once he realizes that nothing is really going to make him happy, and really true happiness comes from living in the present, living in the moment, that's when he leaves again. One thing that I found unique was just the fact that change is a permanent. And so when people get upset about something not going their way, or something, that they think is devastating, what Dr. Hackett says is, don't rely on it, because the only permanence, I can't say the word, is that change is here to stay. And so if you don't like something, yes, you're going to want to change it, but also you don't want to wallow in it, because it's likely that things are going to resolve. And so, like, there's this delicate balance between, this isn't going well, and, I'm going to get all upset about it, and, I'm going to do something about it. And so one of the things he says is just, you can't not hope to change things, but at the same time, you can't hold on to things so tightly and cling on to something so tightly that you strangle it, because that's the attachment that will cause you the suffering, according to Siddhartha. All right, let's see. Oh, and the only, all of your attachments are the source of your suffering. And so once you let it go, once you let it go and you sit lightly with it, where you're almost symbiotic with it, or you're not clutching it and like trying to strangle it, then that's when your suffering will be eased. So Siddhartha goes through this stage where he goes through more gambling and greater dissatisfaction, and he looks to religion. And as Dr. Hackett goes on to in the next few slides, he talks about how religion is really just our need for symbolism, or our need for meaning. and that we spin these webs of meaning. And the fact that, oh, hang on. The fact that we're searching for meaning is what religion is all about. Ultimately, that we need to be able to live, and we need to make our choices, and that the only way that those answers are going to make sense is if we live our life and we live it with genuine honesty. Okay, so then this one is talking about how suffering, and we talked about this already earlier, and that's just one of the noble truths, how suffering, it can only stop when our attachment ends, and that, this is what the anthropologist said, is that we're always searching for meaning, we're always on this quest, and we spin these webs of meaning, that we're compelled to do this, and that without that, we would just be dogs, and that dogs have no existential angst, he calls it. But humans have all these questions, and we just keep asking these questions over and over again, when instead, why can't we just embrace the moment and go with it? So that's this right there. That's my picture of a dog. And then he talks about taking it like a dog. So that's why that was there. Then he shows the clip about Steve Jobs. Well, right before that, actually, shows the poet clip again, which we just talked about. And it makes a lot more sense, and I guess especially when you just start thinking about life and things like that, yeah, it makes more sense that people could tell you already what to do. And a lot of times parents do that to their children, but the kids don't always listen. And like my mom always said, I wish I could tell you all the mistakes not to make, but you're not going to understand the reasoning behind them. So without meaning, you have no learning. So then it goes on to Steve Jobs's commencement address to Stanford. And he says, talk about what you love and, follow your intuition, follow your heart. Don't settle. Don't ever settle. And so then he talks about how death clears out the old, and that you'll just be detached. If you're living a life that you're not genuine in, then you'll just be detached, and that's not a life. So you need to listen to your own voice, and you need to you need to have the courage to do what he did. And even some of his earlier life choices that you would think didn't really matter, like when he was at Reed College, he took this art class about handwriting, or it was his handwriting class. And that is actually what became one of the fonts of his first computer. So what this is all saying is just that while we would love to give you the answers, or while Buddhism or anything would love to give you the answers, it's like holding on to water. You can't hold on to water. The harder you try to hold on to it, the more is going to seep through your fingers. That's my philosophical view on the matters.